Hola, hola, and welcome to Cultura en Cash. This is your host, Giovanna Gonzalez, known as Gigi or the influencer, the first gen mentor. I'm a financial educator, speaker, and best-selling author. And not the podcast gods turning on me, because this is actually my second time recording this episode. It's never happened to me. I've listened to podcasts for years, and I've heard podcasters bitch about this happening to them, like, oh, the audio quality was bad, or like the microphone wasn't turned off. It happened to me, and this is what happened because I did not do like a sound check before. I usually do a sound check before I start. This time I just got into it because it's been a while since I recorded, and I forgot the flow of things, and look what happened. So yeah, I recorded a 30-minute episode. And then I'm re-recording it now, but no biggie because everything's still fresh in my mind, and actually hopefully this time it's a lot more succinct. So I think I can get it in 20 minutes because like I said, I know what I have to cover now as opposed to the other episode. Sorry I did miss last week's episode. I was on vocal rest for my audiobook. I was going to start the audiobook recording that Monday. I usually record the podcast on Sundays. And I said, you know what? Let me take an easy Sunday just so I can have the right energy for this audiobook recording. And I'm so glad that I did because the audiobook recording was a success. I thought that it was going to take longer to record than the 4 days we had allocated, but we actually knocked it out within those 4 days and ended up, I think, saving 2 or 3 hours of recording time. So it was great. It was such a great experience. I was scared for nothing. Everything went great. I had a great director that kept me on track. The sound engineer was very patient with me. It was a great experience. And the audiobook is now done. It'll be out in September. I do have to go back in a couple weeks for a couple of pickups for me to reduce some of the lines that maybe weren't clear or something like that. But everything is in motion for this audiobook to be out in September. So I'm so excited to get that out to you. Before we get into today's topic, let's do some quick housekeeping. First, I want to remind you that I am having my free event, which is book tour, no, sorry, book tips with Gigi. And this is a free webinar that I've been promising you for months. It's because I kept getting so many questions from people wanting to pick my brain about the book writing process, the publishing process. And I said, I can't meet with everybody one-on-one, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold a free webinar where you can attend and ask me your questions and pick my brain then in a group setting. The day is here. I've been posting about it on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I just remembered I haven't posted about it on TikTok, so I guess I'll post about it tonight. But it'll be this Wednesday, the 22nd, May 22nd, at 4 p.m. Central Time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time for people in the West Coast. You can sign up for free by visiting the link in my show notes or the link in my bio. If you aren't able to make that time, register anyways because I will be sending the replay to anybody who registers. And if you are able to attend but need to leave early or have to attend late, again, register and you will get that full replay once that's done. Number 2 on my housekeeping list, I'm having an additional book tour stop in San Diego. I know I had said that Florida was going to be my last one before I took a break for the summer, but after listening to today's topic, you'll see why I added San Diego. That'll be on Wednesday, June 5th at Libellula bookstore in Barrio Logan. It'll be at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. The tickets are actually technically sold out, but we're working with the bookstore to see if we can open more spots. So stay tuned for that. Newsletter always gets first access, and actually that's how it got sold out, through the newsletter. It didn't even make it public like on social media. So make sure to be signed up for the newsletter so that when this new round of tickets opens up, you're able to get access first before it goes public on my socials. The link is also in the show notes or in the link in my bio. Next item, I had a book tour event scheduled with Janice. I was going to host her. So this is going to be to promote her book, Financially Lit, that came out in April. She was going to be here in May, but unfortunately she had some travel issues and wasn't able to be in Chicago after all. We have now rescheduled that event to Thursday, June 20th. So please save the date. It'll be at the exact same bookstore that I was before, City Lit Books in Logan Square, same time, 6 p.m., and it'll be the same event. It'll be a 1-hour event where we'll have a short panel discussion about her book, and then she'll be doing meet and greets and book signings and all that fun stuff. So if you were bummed about the event getting canceled last time, this is your chance to event. She will be here on Thursday, June 20th. And then one last thing that I wanted to add before I get into today's topic. When I first started this podcast, I had a couple of listener questions submitted. One of them that I really liked was, what's the coolest opportunity that's come about from you publishing this book? This question was submitted to me in February. And at the time, it was so early. Like the book had just launched January 23rd. So I said, it's still early. So I'm excited for what's to come, but we'll see, right? And since then, there's been a lot of cool things that I've done. I've done a lot of like local TV. I did NASDAQ. Lots of cool things. I'm definitely getting invited to speak at organizations, at like big name organizations that I never really like was on their radar. And now I am. So that's definitely cool. My speaking career is definitely at a new level. But what I can say now for sure, the coolest thing that I'd say has happened is I'm going to be the keynote speaker for UC Santa Barbara's first gen college graduate ceremony. So that'll be later this month in Santa Barbara. And if you didn't know, I'm a gaucho. That is my alma mater. So for me to be able to go back 13 years after I graduated and to be able to speak to the younger version of myself and share real life tips, not just like BS about like, oh, you're the future and you should be so proud of yourself. Obviously, that's important as part of a commencement speech or a graduation speech. But because this is going to be a smaller ceremony, so to be clear, this isn't the big commencement speech where like, I don't know, like the one that, what's his name? The Seinfeld guy. He was just that, like when there's big celebrities like at USC or like big Harvard, big institutions like that, those are like the big commencement speech. This is like a spin-off, like a smaller graduation just for first-gen college graduates. I think they're expecting 250 students, which is good because it's just less pressure than like thousands of students, right? So, and it's really excited that they're giving me creative control about what I can say, and they want me to keep it real, not just like, oh my God, you're the future. You guys are so smart. You did it. That's cool too. But again, let me give you some real tips about what you can do in this next chapter because this is just the start, So I love that. I love that that's how I start my social media content about like, hey, like you're not done. There's still like the first gen experience does not end in college. It's going to follow you in the workplace as a first gen professional. It's going to follow you as a wealth builder, which I discuss in the book Cultura en Cash. So I'm really excited to be able to drop some gems to the kids from my alma mater. I do need to share a disclaimer that this event is not public. I know I've had some friends that I shared this with and like, oh, I want to go. Unfortunately, it is closed to the public. It is for the graduating students and their families only, but I wanted to share because I just think it's really exciting. I never envisioned myself being invited to speak at my university, and it's just really a full circle moment. So it's really, really cool. All right, so let's get to today's topic. Today's episode is called The Florida Flop. And it's about my book tour stop in South Florida. And the reason I decided to make this the topic of today's episode is because I don't want to be that content creator that just shares the wins. I think it's important for us to celebrate our wins, to show other people what's possible, to inspire others, but I think it's equally as important to be able to be vulnerable with others and show them that not everything works out as planned. Sometimes there are some lows, sometimes there are some failures, and that's okay. It's all about like being able to pick yourself up, learn from your mistakes, and for me personally, to share them with others so that people don't make the same mistakes I did. And that's what happened out of this book tour stop. So a little context here. If you haven't been to any of my book tour events or haven't seen my socials, I've been promoting all the events that I've attended. I've had several stops in Chicago, New York City, and LA. And I will always share like content, right? Of like behind the scenes of like the book tour, of like people waiting in line to have their books signed by me, or listeners in the crowd, paying attention to us as we're speaking about the book. So I proudly display these well-attended events. Most of these events have sold out within hours. If not, they're very, very well attended. So again, that's what I'm used to. But my Florida stop was a flop. Guess how many people showed up to my South Florida stop? I'll let you think about it. Guess. One person. One person showed up to my South Florida stop. And it was still a great event. I will share more about it in a bit, but I now recognize some of the things that I did wrong. And now that I've had some time to reflect and lick my wounds, I can share why those things were wrong and how I could have spotted some red flags and maybe avoided an unsuccessful event. First, I do want to share a disclaimer that my co-host, Carla Santamaria, who is also known as the first gen coach, was fantastic. I am so thankful that Carla was there with me to co-host me, and the bookstore Stimulit was amazing. They were amazing too. So this does not fall on them. This is actually on me and my poor planning and forecasting. So I'm going to share what those mistakes were. So and first, before I say there was one person in attendance, there was one person in attendance. Literally, one person was like, "Oh, I saw the event earlier on Facebook," which I think the bookstore promoted it on Facebook. So again, the bookstore did a great job of helping me get the word out. And she came because she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be in the area. I'll go to the event." There were 5 people that had registered for the event, and unfortunately, they didn't make it. But that should have already been a signal, like, "Ooh, we're not getting like a lot of registrations for this event, right?" So even though there was only one person that showed up, Carla, my co-host, brought her sister. So her sister was technically a second audience member. So they got a very intimate VIP experience with the book. So that was cool for them. And then the bookstore staff, there was about six women there, I believe, working that night. And I'm sure that they planned to stand for my event so that any attendees could sit. There were a lot of chairs laid out for people to sit, but they were empty because nobody else was there. There were these 2 people in attendance. So they took a seat. So technically I had like 8 people like that were watching me and my teachings and engaged in the Q&A and all that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely not what I was hoping for. It's not what Carla was hoping for. And it's certainly not what the bookstore were hoping for. They were hoping to sell books, right? That's the whole reason why they hold these author events with authors. So now that I've had some time to process what I did wrong, I want to share those teachings. Number one, the reason why I think this book tour stop was a failure was because I didn't have enough time to promote the event. My other events, I've had at least a month to promote the events, if not more. I think for some events I've known for 2 months in advance. So, hey, save the date. Hey, here's the link. Here's the registration page. And when I have that much runway to promote an event, it just makes it easier for people to plan and to plan to be there, right? Where a week and a half out, it's not very much time. A lot of people may already have plans, or maybe people are out of town. It's just not enough time to promote a successful event, at least for me. So that was my fault because I wasn't planning to do this Florida stop. This was very last minute, and it was because I wanted to piggyback off a trip I was doing with Secret Deodorant for a project I had with them. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be in Florida anyways. I haven't been to Florida for a book tour stop. Let me just add one since I'll be in town, right? So it wasn't like a center focus. The center focus was a Secret Deodorant project, not my book tour stop. That came second. And that's what happens when you don't prioritize something first. It just wasn't very well executed. And the reason that I only had a week and a half to promote it out was because that's when I got the information from Seeker about, is this going to be in Miami? Is this going to be in Fort Lauderdale? Like, where is this going to be? We didn't know all those details till very last minute. So that's my fault for trying to piggyback off of another trip that was much higher priority, and I should have just focused on that. The other takeaway here was that I've never gotten interest from a South Florida speaking client. In the 3 years that I've been doing this, that I've been working for myself as a speaker, content creator, influencer, not once have I gotten interest from a Florida speaking client. I've gotten tons of interest from Texas, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, El Paso, tons from California, of course, right? I'm from California. Lots in Southern California, Orange County, LA, San Diego County, and tons in Chicago. I live in Chicago. Tons of interest from New York City too. Never have I gotten interest from a Florida client, which to me signals that that's not probably where my reader or my audience is. Maybe they are. Maybe had I had enough time to promote it, maybe the event would have been a success. But like I said, the fact that like in these 3 years, not once have I gotten an inquiry from a speaking client in that area just tells me that I don't think my target reader is there. I don't know how big the Mexican American population is in Florida. If I had to guess, probably not very big, right? Like how it is in LA and Texas and in Chicago. And even though I am a Latina and I know that I have a lot of Central American Latino followers or Colombian, South American Latino readers, like obviously the information I share can benefit every Latina, Latine, but it really, really strikes a chord with the Mexican American community because when I wrote the book, I wrote it with like the dichos that I grew up with, right? That they speak to the Mexican American community. So I think that was just like something interesting to note that maybe that could have told me too that that's probably wouldn't have been the best place for me to hold an event. And then lastly, the other mistake I made was that I didn't want to hold the event in Miami. So the event for Secret was going to be in Deerfield Beach, which is close to Fort Lauderdale. So this is like an hour north of Miami. So then I'm like, okay, I'm here for the Secret project, which means instead of staying in Miami, I'm going to stay close to where I have to show up for the Secret project because I had to be there at 9 a.m. I didn't want to have to deal with traffic, any of that. So that was a priority, which meant that if I had to go down to Miami for a book tour stop, it would be an hour drive. And I'd heard a lot of bad things about Miami traffic. I've never been in the area. I'm not familiar with it. So the thought of having to drive an hour south to get there and an hour back to return back to the hotel, it just wasn't appealing to me. After traveling so much for the book tour since February, I've been traveling. And at this point, it's end of April, and I'm just like depleted from traveling. I'm like, ugh, no more traveling. Like, I don't want to go an hour south. People can come to me in Deerfield Beach, and that's what happened. One person came. So that was a good lesson. I probably should have made the effort to go to Miami, and I think I would have had better turnout. Maybe it wouldn't have been sold out like my other events because like I said, I still only had a week and a half to promote it. But maybe I could have had 10 people show up, instead of one. Maybe I could have had, I don't know, 15 people show up. My other events, for context, I mean, I've had people with 50 events, with 50 events with 50 people, 75 people. And again, there's wait lists and things like that. So yeah, for this to be an event where only one person showed up and I wasn't able to generate a lot of book sales for the bookstore, it was definitely a blow to my ego. So yeah, it was a good lesson learned. So question here, would I do it again? Would I go to Florida again? I would go, of course, especially if I was invited. If I was invited to speak at a big event, if they're paying for my travel, if they're paying me for a speaking fee, of course I would go. Con dinero baila el perro. It's my favorite saying. So of course I would go, but would I pay for my own way to have a book tour stop in Miami or anywhere else in Florida, Orlando? Probably not, to be honest, because like I said, I've never gotten interest from that area. So I'm going to stick to the places where I know my reader is, and that's why in the fall I'm making Texas a priority. I got so many requests for like, why didn't you come to Texas? And I'm like, well, I didn't get a speaking client. So it meant I had to pay my own way. So what I'm going to do for the fall, I'm going to have a second leg of the book promo because now I'm going to be promoting the audiobook, which will be out in September. So I'll probably be going to LA again. I'll definitely do some events in Chicago because I'm in Chicago. I may or may not go back to New York, but I will definitely be in Texas. Probably Dallas, maybe Houston, maybe both. I am working on getting speaking clients so that way it's easier for me to be in that area. Even if that means me speaking at a discount so that I'm able to go there, have my travel covered, and be able to meet my Texas readers, I will do that because that's important for me to be able to have that time with my Texas readers too. But I can't do it all like for free, meaning like I pay for my travel, I pay for my hotel. So it has to be with the speaking client, but it has to be well in advance so that they feel good about a discounted rate and everything else can be set up. So if you are in that area, either in Dallas, Fort Worth area, or in Houston, and you are connected to a college, a university, employee resource group, nonprofit, any sort of organization that would be interested in hearing me speak about financial literacy, about career advocacy, entrepreneurship, being a content creator, please slide into my DM so that we can work something out so that I'm there in the fall and I'm able to have a book tour stop in that area. And I've shared this too about Las Vegas. I plan to add an event in Las Vegas because I'm going to be there for personal reasons. So again, if you know somebody in that area and in any organization or even that you can point me to, I'm happy to get in touch with them to try to schedule an event there. Because like I said, I'm going to be there for personal reasons anyways. But anywho, to wrap up my Florida flop, it even though I only had one person show up, overall it was a good event in the sense that I still did the full hour. I still had an amazing discussion with Carla. Um, she was a great moderator, and afterwards I got to do dinner with her and her sister. So we got some one-on-one time. I left some signed copies at the store. So if you're interested in supporting this Latina-owned bookstore, go to steamylit.com and they'll have signed copies that you can purchase. But now it might make more sense why I added this San Diego stop when it has said that Florida was going to be my last one. It is very much to redeem myself. I told David, my husband, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot end this book tour stop on a bad note. Like, I've been so successful with all the other ones, and this cannot be the end of it. He's like, oh my God, you're being a brat. Like, just take the L. You know that the other ones you did well in. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I can't end it like this. And luckily, this San Diego opportunity came about through a speaking client. I have a speaking client that I'm going to speak in for a summit in Temecula around the same time. And Temecula is 1 hour north of San Diego. So I am going to drive 1 hour south to go to San Diego. And you might think, oh, well, how come you weren't willing to do that for Miami, but you'll do it for San Diego? Because I spent most of my 20s in San Diego. So I'm very familiar with San Diego. I have a lot of friends in the area that I'm also excited about visiting while I'm there for business. So yeah, that's the reason for me adding this additional book tour stop. It probably will be the last one for the summer, but again, something else might pop up. So I'm flexible, but like the heavy promo period is definitely done for the summer, and then I will pick it up back in the fall when I do the promotion for the audiobook. So again, sharing this to show you that the journey is not perfect. They can't all be wins, and that's okay. That's okay. It's all about learning from your mistakes and still being gracious and being able to share those hard lessons with others so that they know that if they ever go through failures, like successful people go through failures too, and you still learn something from these tips, and that's okay. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening, and see you next Money Monday.